The industry is so tense right now. Guys, I was at a Rise TV a couple of days ago just to speak to the issues. I mean, the supply side, the demand side, and the whole beauty industry with this volatility of pricing and the, well, should we call it hyperinflation or super hyperinflation, if there is anything like that, that we've experienced in the last few months. It's been really, really challenging. I want you to listen to my interview with Boston Omofai, Arise TV. Watch it right now. Yes.
Okay, we'll turn it back to Nigeria, where Africa's largest economy and the most populous country is yet to find a lasting solution for a sustainable mass housing for its 200 million citizens. Discussing this vexed issue with me here now is a former banker and two-turn real estate entrepreneur and chief executive officer of Realty Point Nigeria, Debo Adejana. Welcome to the show. Good evening.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mofai.
Where are we on mass housing? Is that still a reality? It looks like a lot of folks don't really care about that. Is there a new approach to this very elusive economic challenge?
Yeah, I would say that there's been some interesting development in recent times. When I first came into the development space about 17 years ago, when you talk about mass housing, you are only talking about ownership. But recent development in the space and discussions around solutions have started including rentals and social housing. So in that perspective, we would say that we are making progress. And
Nigerians want to own a house. You know that.
Yes, but everybody can't.
It's a social-cultural thing.
Yeah,
Sentiment.
it is.
Yes.
It is. Everybody can't. However, everybody should be housed. So I think the fundamental solution should be that.
So that's a bit different.
Mass housing.
Yes, mass housing.
Not
doesn't
mean mass ownership. Exactly.
But when we say mass housing, what goes in the head of the average man on the street is that this is my house.
Maybe the average man that you are talking about. But
Yes.
I tell you, the real average man there just wants a roof over his head. If he can own it, better. But worst case situation, he should be able to afford the roof over his head, even if it comes to social housing.
Yeah, so what's the biggest challenge in real estate here when you talk about social housing? Define that for me.
So social housing is when the government, of course, participates in housing provision in a subsidized manner.
Participate?
Okay. Yes, in
Not
housing
lead.
provision. Of course, must be the leader. But what I mean is provide the enabling environment. So in that sense, leading, of course.
Okay.
So participate by providing the enabling environment in housing provision for those that cannot afford to even rent at the normal rate. So it could be providing it for them for a specific time, on rental basis, or even on ownership, maybe for a longer period. So that's social housing.
Do we need to have a long-term view of housing, mass housing in Nigeria, or a short-term view? Do you think that's a major problem?
I think that is really where the problem is. A lot of times when we talk about housing provision, before now, it's just a short-term view. But I believe that with recent development in the space, the Family Homes Fund, for example, coming on board, and a few other things that have happened in recent time, that is being addressed significantly. For example, for the Family Home Fund, if I'm not mistaken, they have in their pipeline for 2022, over 100 housing units that they want to provide. No, 300 housing units that they want to provide. And in their existence, they've done a couple of thousands, that have already been delivered, 5,000 actually, and 9,000 in the pipeline already, that will be delivered this year. So we can see that there is some progress, in that space. Federal Mortgage Bank is also, in a way, recently has been performing at least better than we used to have it. And that has also increased confidence in that institution of government, and people are participating more now.
The cost of a house and rent is so high. There's inflation, there's exchange rate.
Yes, so there are the basic challenge with housing or for the market really right now is on the demand side. There is this inflationary trend that we are witnessing is eroding purchasing power. So you really cannot do much about that. Then on the supply side, for the suppliers is also a challenge because there is this volatility of pricing materials, which is majorly basis of exchange rates, and so take for example the energy sector. Diesel is gone bonkers, and that has its impact on the supply side. So the supplier is also affected.
How are you real estate developers coping?
Okay, well, so coping is the word. Yeah, coping is the word. So a few things. For example, for developers that have really studied the environment right now, a lot aren't selling off-plan projects anymore at the moment, because a lot of the ones that people have sold in the past, in the last 2 years, they are finding it difficult to now deliver because prices have moved against what they sold. And in cases, and that has started affecting trust issues, integrity issues in the market. And because of that happening also, even the ones that maybe eventually delivered, buyers are finding quality issues with what has been delivered, and that is really, really impacting. So for a lot of developers right now, we're trying to stop selling off-plan, and then you develop, and until you know your pricing before you sell. And a lot are also avoiding the finishing materials, the finishing end of it. So you're seeing a lot of carcass or advanced shell being delivered right now, because it is in those finishing components that a lot of these FX fluctuations come in and all of that.
So when we started mortgage banking idea many years ago by the central banks, one and all of that, and we thought it was going to work. But what's the problem here? Are mortgage banks still able to provide mass housing support, funding support?
Mass housing is a challenge for mortgage banks, and largely because of the kind of funding structure. So, we wouldn't say that, I won't really sit down here and say that our mortgage banks are adequately funded to be able to meet the demands of that market. So, investments in mortgage banking needs to be much more than it is right now, And that said, we also need to look at how we can improve on the kind of funding, patient capital that we are injecting or bringing into the system.
That's what I was trying to ask, my final point about what alternative funding options do we have?
So, for example, I think there are two approaches to the issue of funding. I think particularly the CBN has been advocating for the mortgage guarantee companies, That would help in assuring and enabling more people qualify for mortgage. And then also the mortgage bankers in de-risking mortgages, that would help. Then that aside, we should also open up, there's been a lot of talk with the pension fund and all of that. We need to really look at those low-cost funds, and have a way, work around the system by which the mortgage sector, the construction sector can access those funds, and that will bring in the pricing.
You guys got your eyes on that 14 trillion naira. I know that. There's money sitting there. You guys can't get your eyes off that money.
I understand. Sitting there, and it should be used for a good cause.
I understand. Yeah. I understand. It's patient capital. That's what we're looking for.
Yes.
Many thanks for coming, and do have a great weekend. Debo Adejana, real estate entrepreneur and CEO at Realty Point Nigeria.